about what it is you do. I've watched you sort of, I'm going to use the word reinvent
Yes.
yourself many times over again, right?
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that, because when I first met you, I would have called you a marketing genius,
Right.
literally.
Right.
And the reason I've always said that about you is because I don't know anybody that does more research than you, and it is a lost art.
It is.
Because so many times marketing people will be quick to say they think they know because they'll try and create this cookie cutter program.
Right.
And you've learned years ago
No.
that doesn't work.
Well, first of all, research, true quality research is validating, not proving. Because, just look at the political arena and you can prove anything you want.
Right.
So it's about validating. So that's number one. And the whole reinvention, I would say evolving. I've been very entrepreneurial in how I've built my company. And I think that's why entrepreneurs love to work with me, because I get being an entrepreneur. And part of being an entrepreneur is you got to stay a step ahead of what the market needs. You have to. And if nobody else is doing it, you better be willing to step forward and do it yourself.
So finish my question. I've watched you evolve, and now I'm reading that you're a COO. Where
Right.
did this come from?
Where this came from is I kept seeing situations where we would develop a marketing strategy, but I would look at total business planning, and we couldn't do the full strategy because they had capacity issues, they had supplier issues, they had employee issues, they had all of these operational issues that if we would have done the marketing strategy as planned, they would have fallen flat on their face and screwed it all up. And so I kept finding that there weren't people really looking at the operational side of things that also brings the marketing. The other issue I saw was people operate on a day-to-day basis, not always the best way, but they don't market on a day-to-day basis. And so both of those things need to happen. Both of those things need to be in tandem at all times.
So I love telling this story. I hate telling this story.
I know you do.
Years ago, we had known each other for years.
Yep.
I was ready. My broker business had got to a point where I literally was, and still am, the number one small business broker. Please hear the word small business broker,
Yeah,
right?
that's
in the
a
area.
wonderful niche you have.
And I wanted to take that to the next level, right? And so there's nobody to help me do that than number one. So I ask you, hey, do me a favor. Let's come up with some sexy stuff, that I can work with, and I'd appreciate it if you do that for me. And you said, sure, Joe, I'll be happy to do that. I'm going to need a list of all of your past clients and your current clients. I said, whoa, what? And you said, yeah, I'm going to have to talk to them. No, Cherie, I just want you to give me a tagline. I don't need all this. And she said, Joe, I can't do that until I do the research.
Non-negotiable. I would have walked away.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And so 4 months later, 45 pages later, you've described my business in a way that I had no idea what people were thinking, and you found voids that needed to be corrected.
Yes.
And so you helped me in my company, and I was frustrated
Yeah.
and wanted to throw things at you because what
You're not the first one.
because you found these voids, right, in my business.
Yes.
And one of them I already knew but didn't care, right? Which was my clients were unhappy. They wanted to hear from Joe even when I couldn't sell or wasn't selling their business. And I would say to you, well, don't you think I'd call them if I had somebody interested? And you said, Joe, they want to know what you're doing.
Right.
They want to know how you're doing it. They want to know. And it really did change our entire business.
Yeah.
And because of that, we came up with something that is exclusive to the industry.
Right.
We call it a Sub Rosa report, where we literally let our clients know on either a monthly or quarterly basis exactly what's happening, how many people have inquired, what Julie has did with them, how many of them have signed NDAs. And that all came from your research.
Well, and that's the power of process, right? It's so critically important. Communication is one of the most differentiating things that companies can do. Another example in research that we found with a paper rolls company was that all their competitors were using voicemail, and they were doing it too. And so everyone was getting directed here, directing there, directed everywhere, but not where they wanted to go. And all of their competitors were much larger. So we determined that they operated 3 different shifts too, remind you. And so we determined that the way they could, one way, not the only way, but one way they could differentiate themselves is answer the frickin' phone.
Right.
Answer the phone. And so then there was a commitment by customer service to have on-call, just like you'd have on-call doctors or nurses or something like that. So that if the phone would get answered 24/7. It was a game changer for them, an absolute game changer for them. And so, again, what aren't competitors doing? But more important, what could you be doing to make you, again, preferred, to make you the go-to? And sometimes it's the simplest things.
And it's only through your research, right? We have to allow you, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Into the closet, right? You know what I mean?
Well,
which is not easy, Cherie.
Right.
I mean, it's not easy just let you in. You understand that?
Yeah.
I mean, there might be some skeletons in there, you understand?
Well, it's called private industry for a reason, right?
Right.
Well, but let's go back to research and let's see. When I did the first CRISP study way back right around 9/11, right after 9/11, I had this 6-page written survey, 8.5 by 14, really 12 pages, 2-sided 6-pager that I mailed out blindly to all these companies that they were supposed to send back blindly their figures and everything else, and they did it. The first 1,000, I got 27% response, which is just ridiculously high, right? And what I realized is what we promised was that we would give them their results first. And what we realized is there were companies that, there were basically what we ended up doing. We kept sending it out till about 2003, and then got what we could do a subgroup of companies that had double or triple digit growth compared to companies that were stagnant or negative growth. And everything, all of our proprietary approach is built off of that study done way back when, because then we took it from Southeast. That was done in the Southeast. We took it to the national, and that's where the 50 Growth Secrets came from. That book came from, is then it got proven on a national scale. But the reality is that you got to be willing to share. If these businesses weren't willing to share, their dollars, their revenues, then we wouldn't have had such powerful data to work with.
So thank you for reminding me that your marketing book is one of my favorite of all times.
Well, and our guest, it was featured in that book, so among
Tell
many
everybody-
other things.
Tell everybody about that book. It really is an exceptional book, and it is just as good today as how long ago has it been that you wrote it?
It's been 10 years now.
Yeah.
And the biggest compliment I got, Forward Book Reviews, which is the coveted national review that you want for your book. This book had to come out. It needed to come out. Nobody was doing anything about down economic times, right? And so typically you can't get a coveted review when the book has already been released. But I said, we couldn't wait for you to review it. It had to get released because businesses need this book.
Right.
And then after it got released, we got this coveted review. And then the other thing is I insisted that this book be higher priced than what is typical. You know me, I always like to buck the system.
Right.
And then this review said, for less than 50 cents on the dollar, you can't beat these 50
Right.
secrets. And I'm like, see, I proved
Yeah.
it wrong. I could make more money off this book. But at any rate.
Somebody else knows about number one.
And but what is, you're absolutely right. Probably the only section, and so I will have a second edition coming, but I'm working on my fourth and fifth book now. So, is the internet section. They're the basic stuff of the internet, but now we've got so many more social media, things like that. But the basics of it are still spot on.
They
Yeah.
really are.
Yeah.
They're actual real pieces of information.
Right.
A guy like me can say, "Oh, I might be able to use that."
Well, and what's funny is, okay, this was written for business owners, okay, but I get a lot of people in the marketing industry reading it, and they would say, and so I got my first bad review from a marketing expert who basically said, well, this is just basic stuff. We know that we can do this in our sleep. And I go, this wasn't written for you. This was written This was written for small business owners
I
that don't
didn't-
know what they don't know.
That's right. That's
and,
right.
And I go, and so kudos to you for reinforcing this, because many businesses need to get back to the basics.
Well-
but I go, I guarantee there were some secrets in here that you've never done. I guarantee it. And so that kind of shut that up.
Well, Sheree, the truth is, again, I'm showing my age, but, back in the day, I used to consider myself a master marketing man, right? Well, I had restaurants inside office buildings. My master marketing was a flyer that said where you're going to go when you want a sloppy Joe, right? And I'd slide it underneath the door, right?
Right.
But
there's nothing wrong
it
with
worked. But that's all I know.
There is absolutely nothing wrong with guerrilla marketing. One of my favorite stories to share.
Just so you know, Wilton's in there laughing at my slogan, where you going to go when you want a sloppy Joe. They were delicious, by the way. I want you to know.
I bet they were. But back to basics and relationship building, there's something to be said for that. A landscaping company that made their mark because we did geographic, what I call pocketing, and we identified neighborhoods that they could totally dominate, right? And so once they got to a certain point in a neighborhood where they began to dominate, and this was several years ago that they did this, they would hire an ice cream truck to give free ice cream to all the neighborhood kids.
Right.
Just basic things. Saved a assisted van dealership, probably $200,000 in TV advertising sales, because we determined by looking at the traffic flow of who they serve the most that they could do billboards and radio. They'll love hearing that. At a fraction of the cost.
You just made
better.
Justin's day,
Yeah.
right? The radio works.
Yeah. By combining billboard and radio, and
Right.
and literally put profits in their literally put profits back into their
Okay,
pocket.
so let's